Hello and welcome to the second season of Mirai Asset Mutual Fund and CNBC TV18.com present Wizards of Finance, which is an investor education series where a lot of the top financial experts will be joining in to share insights into how to invest, how to create wealth, and how to reach your financial goals. And we'll also be talking about how you can do this and how you can diversify your investments using the exchange traded funds or ETFs as we know it now with an aim to actually help you stay ahead of the investment game. I'm Sumaira Abdi, and joining me today, I have Vaibhav Shah, who's the head of products and marketing at Mirai Asset Mutual Fund. Hi, Vaibhav. Thanks so much for joining in. And we want to actually start by talking about where things stand right now, because even within the passive pie, which is just less than 3 lakh crores right now, it's ETFs which have the largest chunk, right? So, what has the growth been, and what are you noticing now in terms of investor preferences regards to ETF?
Sure. Thanks, Sumera, for having us for today's discussion. I think so. What we can clearly see is, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of disruption happening. So, if you see across many places, artificial intelligence, robotics, many disruptions happening. But when it comes to finance, I think so. One of the biggest, disruptions has been exchange traded funds or ETFs. And globally, we've seen that passive funds, AUM has actually now crossed $7 trillion and is much higher. Passive funds AUM is much higher than active funds. Now, when you see India, I think so we are sort of a late starter in this game of passive investing. And I'm sure as the times go ahead, a lot of catch up will happen. So, like you rightly pointed out, the AUM for ETFs and passive funds is somewhere around 3 lakh crores. A large part of it is driven by essentially three categories, if I would put it. One is the investments made by EPFO, which is into say Nifty 50 and Sensex ETFs. Second is the government CPSE ETFs, and the third being Bharat bond, kind of issuances, which is a debt ETFs. Now, these essentially are about 85-90% of the AUM. What is happening is the last 10-15% where the AUM is there where a lot of growth is also happening and a lot of innovation is happening in products. If you see the way the regulatory framework is there in India, you would see that there is as much scope possible to innovate in an active fund category, because you have clearly laid out categories. And that's where now a lot of innovation has moved to the passive side. So what we see is the passive side of the business is growing in the last 3-4 years. And I think so we are in that phase that it's ready to explode. We've seen in the last couple of years, commodity ETFs, mainly gold, as well as international ETFs is something that a lot of asset management companies are looking at to launching funds and trying to create a more diversified portfolio for investors. And as I think so, the game changes, you will see a lot of smart beta sort of funds also coming through. So we are in that phase of innovation. We are in that phase of enhancing product basket in India. And I would believe that the next 5-10 years are very interesting from a passive business point of view.
Okay, Vaibhav, I'll tell you where I'm coming from, right? Because for me, what matters is, where things are going to fit into my portfolio. And, the way I see it, the conversation has moved from, should I have an ETF or, some sort of a passive fund in my index? And, now to, which one should I have, right? So there is clearly this shift that is happening in, maybe in a smaller percentage right now, but the shift is visible, right? So for an investor who has now come to terms with the fact that I need some passive exposure, how do they choose, right? First is, how do they know whether you go the ETF route or the index fund route? And secondly, whichever you choose, how do you narrow it down? Because I think already in India there are some 80 ETFs, if I'm not wrong.
So actually, excellent question, Sumera, and I think so. This is one of the big dilemma which is there in investors' mind. Where should I look at passive investing? So I think so. What we've seen is over the last 3 years, we've seen that maybe close to about 75-80% of the active large cap funds have not been able to beat, the benchmark, which is say Nifty 50 or Sensex. So clearly, we had already seen a lot of, family offices, institutional clients, and even retail investors looking at large cap category as the way that they should start allocating and starting their ETF journey. I'm actually also very enthusiastic about a show you had done few days back, where you had highlighted that in the last 1 year, about 80% of the mid cap funds have also underperformed the benchmark. So what is emerging out is that a lot of the funds are finding it difficult to beat the benchmark. And hence the clear importance which is coming out is to have passive mingled with their active strategy. So there has always been a debate whether it's active and passive. I think so. The debate, points are rested. You need to have both active and passive in the investor's portfolio, and you need to be looking at different strategies. So you had one which I covered, which is the market cap strategies, and you could play different themes or thematic sectors through ETFs, which you cannot play through, normal mutual fund categories. So here I would, Sumera, want to give you an example of global context. So if you see innovation which is happening globally, is a lot of sector and thematic funds are being launched on artificial intelligence, electronic vehicles, then you've got robotics, you've got semiconductors, telemedicines. Uh, Now these are emerging as big themes. So if investors want to take a concentrated bet on that theme, the best way to play out is ETFs. I know that time will come in India soon, but what I want to highlight is similarly in India, you have a lot of good sectors. You can play the healthcare or the banking and finance theme also through ETFs, where you can get concentrated views or portfolios on sectors. So ETFs can be used for market caps, you can use it for themes, and you can even do smart beta allocation. And one more category, which I think so, which is used globally. If you were to see foreign money coming in into India, the largest chunk of money which comes to in India as a foreign investor are investors who come to the ETF route. Similarly, the day will come that Indian investors will want to get international exposure. And the best way to get that exposure is through investing in international ETFs. So I think so you've got the entire basket which is available, which investors can access through the ETF platform.
Okay, whether one of the things with the which would help perhaps one ETF stand out against the other would be, I mean, I don't know, to my mind, would be tracking error, right? Because otherwise there would be very little to distinguish one from the other. But this is information which a retail investor wouldn't find readily available. So how do I, as an investor, know, what is the tracking error and how do I read it? I mean, is it always negative if there is a big divergence?
So, Sumera, actually, again, an excellent point that you mentioned. How should investors choose an ETF? And tracking error is one of the most important variables that investors should look at. So, basically, tracking error highlights to investors, the I would say volatility of the fund returns compared to the benchmark. And like you rightly pointed out, this is a number which is not very easily available for investors. So one way is that investors could go through, the fact sheet of an asset management company to find out the tracking error. But again, he will come to know the tracking error of a particular fund and not be able to track all the ETFs at one go. So I think so. What are some of the ways investors can invest in ETFs? Is that when you go through a broker, you can get an entire list of all the ETFs. So let's give an example of Nifty 50, which is the most liquid one. So what investors need to track is one, what is the liquidity of that ETF, right? So tracking error, of course, is a very important element. But second is, can you actually execute the trade? And you want to execute and buy that stock or the security. So you have to look at what is the liquidity of that security and what is the order book of that security. This helps both retail as well as institutional clients also understand, what is the spreads at which they can execute the trade. I would say in case of ETFs, I think a lot of people should forget the AUM of the fund. AUM
Okay.
of the fund has got nothing to do with the performance because the ETF actually mimics the performance of the index. Hence, the most important aspect is to consider the liquidity of the ETF on the exchange and how the asset management company is working with the APs, which is authorized participants, to ensure continuous liquidity on the exchange. Second key aspect I think so investors need to understand is the impact cost. So investors should never do a market order in the case of an ETF. They should put a limit order, try and execute the transaction at a certain price, and that's what they need to take the help of their broker while executing the trade. And third is, like you said, tracking error is difficult for him to understand. So the easiest way is to see the fund's return vis-a-vis the benchmark return. And can the fund actually deliver returns in line with the benchmark returns? So even if they don't track the tracking error, even if the fund returns match with the index returns, which is the most simplest way investors can check whether the ETF that they've invested in is actually giving the performance that they actually would like when they make the investments.
Okay, Vaibhav, just to labor this point a little bit more, what has been the global experience? Is it that a new ETF might start off, or especially because we're talking about new themes emerging, right? So perhaps new indices are being created for that. Does this tracking error reduce as the fund becomes more mature?
Sure. So again, a very excellent point you mentioned, Sumera. So essentially, it's got to do with once you have more indices and more, funds tracking the same index, you would eventually see that the tracking errors would go down. See, I think the tracking error also happens because of the underlying liquidity of the securities, which is got to do with the maturity of markets. So in most of the developed markets, you see they are fairly liquid. The information bias is less, and hence the ability to do the transactions uh, at less impact cost is high. So as more indices are created, as more liquidity happens to the underlying stocks, you would see that tracking errors eventually should narrow down for most of the funds. And when the you always believe that when the collective wisdom of investors come in, that's the time that you would see efficiencies happening. And the same, I think so, like you rightly pointed out, when more funds, more strategies are worked along with index providers, more funds tracking an index, the liquidity and tracking errors should improve for those indices.
So, Weber, if I understand it correctly, say if somebody wants to start adding ETFs, and perhaps somebody who already has, the very high likelihood is that they would have the frontline ETFs, right? The big indices. Now we're seeing the advent of a lot of the smart beta. I think there are already 10, 11 ETFs in that category. You've mentioned so many, technological innovations where products are available. Of course, we have, gold ETFs. So if somebody was to use it for tactical allocation, which should be the first ETF? I mean, apart from the big index, what would be the first ETF of choice for a retail investor?
So I think Sumera, like you rightly pointed out, so I think we'll have to go to each investor, see their risk profile. But essentially, one of the best ways to play is first you should have the market cap ETFs, which is say Nifty 50, Next 50. Uh, so you have the large allocation to equities covered. In fact, as a fund house, we believe if you were to see in India, we've got a large universe of stocks, but on market cap basis, the large indices is 75% of the market cap, and hence the Nifty 50, Next 50 should ideally be a large part of your allocation. Now the other themes, which is sectors, thematics, could be like 10-15% of your allocation,
Hmm.
and this covers on the equity aspect. Now, on the debt side, I think so. We've seen a lot of things happening in the last 1 or 2 years. You have got a lot of PSU ETFs. You have now gilt ETFs. You have PSU plus corporate bonds and other ETFs coming through. I think so. When you have a complete basket, uh, a debt ETF is again a very beautiful piece where you can take exposure at a very low cost to government securities, to bonds, to public sector undertakings. So ideally, any investor, say I'm saying if you are 40 years, you would have ideally 60% allocation to equities, maybe 30% allocation to debt, and maybe 10% to international and gold. So you can primarily use all these three buckets and create an ETF basket where you have gold, international, debt. But you cannot forget the large indices as part of your equity allocation.
Okay, so as of now, active and passive will coexist in a person's portfolio. How long before you think the Indian market matures to, the equivalent of a developed market in terms of ETFs? Because, globally we're seeing, or, what, some $5 trillion in assets in the US in the passive space. How much more time do you think before we see that kind of acceptance of ETFs in India?
So, Sumera, this is actually a question that, is confusing all of us, because maybe a couple of years back, we thought maybe ETFs will happen 10 years from now. But, the incidents that we've seen over the last 2-3 years have clearly highlighted, that large cap had been, ETFs have been able to, outperform most of the active large cap funds. Like your show rightly pointed out, maybe 80% of the mid caps have now actually underperformed the mid cap index as well. So I think so the time will come faster than we realize. But what I want to tell you is alpha generation will continue in a growth market like India. So, because India is a country where, we have the highest number of listed companies, yet we have so many entrepreneurs, so many businessmen who would, want to get their business or companies listed. And you will see the pie, only expanding. So what we are saying is that alpha generation will continue, but alpha generation, which used to happen with earlier 70-80% of the fund managers, will actually move to be there with maybe 20 or 40% of the fund managers. And that's where the funds which are not able to beat the benchmark will find it difficult. And that's where low cost ETFs will really step in. So alpha generation maybe even continue after 5 years, 10 years, but it will not be for all managers. And I would like to again tell that we consider Warren Buffett as the father of investing and one of the best alpha managers of all times. And question that he himself said for his retirement money, he said, I would be happy to invest in a passive index like S&P 500. So it clearly is just highlighting the point that passive has to be part of your portfolio. I'm saying alpha will be there with active funds, well managed funds. So I would say still the good fund managers should be able to outperform, but some of the other guys may find it challenged to beat low cost ETFs where the expenses are at least 2% or 1.5% lower than the active guys.
Absolutely. An idea whose time has come, and we can already see the beginning of the snowball effect over here. And, there's only so much place at the top of the podium, and perhaps this will push fund managers to, give themselves that extra push to actually look at creating alpha over and above the benchmark, and not just delivering, substandard returns, if I can use that word, although it may be a little bit harsh, but why not? But definitely ETFs is something that will be pushing active fund managers also to their limit. Thanks very much, Vaibhav, for joining in and for explaining this to us, and for explaining the part that ETFs could play in a person's portfolio.
Thanks for helping us send this message across to a large segment of investors.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Vaibhav, and thanks everybody for watching this webinar. We hope that it has added some value to your insights into ETFs. Thanks very much for watching. Bye-bye.
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all the scheme-related documents carefully.